It says megalophobia. I think I'm saying that right. Megalophobia, fear of the huge. Should be an interesting video. Fear of the huge, megalophobia by Crescendex.
Yes.
The channel's Crescendex. I've never heard of this channel before.
How many you have, but here is one for old time's sake. Lol.
Hey, thanks, John. Appreciate it, bro. Crescendex. I've never heard of this channel before. Let's go ahead and check it out.
Big things. We as humans have always been interested in big things. The biggest store, the biggest country, the biggest planet. Whatever the case is, big things seem to fascinate us. Historically, humanity has built things purely for the sake of being big. The Great Pyramids of Giza are a good example of this. Sure, they were used as tombs for pharaohs, but they did not need to be the size that they were. And yet they are. There's a certain respect to be gained for building big. Dubai has the world's largest building in the world right now, with the Burj Khalifa. And it's because of this building that the city of Dubai...
That would be really fun to see in person. I don't know if I'll ever go to Dubai in my life. But the Wiz Khalifa... That looks like one tall-ass building. Someone tell me how tall that building is. I don't know. I don't know the exact number, but it looks huge.
Attracts more than 14 million visitors
right, Z-Man?
each year.
I knew someone was going to say that's what she said.
The building is a little over half a mile tall, but the Burj
Half a mile tall? Jeez.
Khalifa won't stay the tallest building forever. Researchers at MIT, using data from the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat, have suggested that there is a 9% chance that a mile-high skyscraper will be built by the year 2050.
A mile high?
Even if this
Damn.
milestone is not reached, it's still probable that a mile-high structure will be constructed at some point. There is an inherent awe we feel about the huge, no matter how pointless or ugly. While most of us would be impressed by huge objects made by mankind, a small percentage of people get utterly paralyzed.
Oh, yeah, the Hoover Dam. Is that the Hoover Dam? That thing's huge.
With fear when they see an image like this. To a certain group of people, images like these absolutely terrify them. This condition has often been referred to as megalophobia.
Hey, I said it right. Megalophobia. I said it right.
People with megalophobia have an intense fear of large objects.
Oh, hell no. I don't... Is that a water park? I'm not going down that water slide. Hell no.
I don't think I have megalophobia, but I can see where people who do are coming from. After all, our brains have been hardwired to spot threats, and large objects might be the most threatening of all. But that's only large living things.
That's a big manta ray.
Present when looking at a large boat, for example.
Oh, that's
Yet the feeling
creepy.
is still there.
Creepy.
The subreddit for megalophobia has over 700,000 members. A good amount of people clearly fear the huge. Although I don't have megalophobia, I do understand it. A little bit of fear around big...
Hey, Nate, thanks for subscribing, bro. Please tell me that's photoshopped. Is that lady really, is this like a giant, is that a clock or just a huge building? This lady's just sitting there? I mean, I guess it wouldn't be dangerous if you're just sitting still, but I don't think I would want to sit there on the edge.
Objects is perfectly natural. Things like larger-than-life creatures or large, unstable structures could very well have the possibility of killing you. While I do have a little bit of fear when encountering large objects, to me
What
at
is
least,
that?
there's also a fascination. A curiosity sparked by large objects. It's not only large objects that impart this feeling in me, cityscapes also impart a similar
Bro, if that's real, she's brave as heck, right, Chip?
feeling. You can find many videos online showing urban climbers climbing large cranes on top of skyscrapers. One such video is this one by Dying Llama titled Sneaking by Security to Climb 1,400-foot Crane in a Storm.
Oh, that sounds safe. Sneaking by security to climb 1,400-foot crane in a storm. That sounds safe.
This video is utterly terrifying to me. But it isn't just him climbing a large crane.
DW says, I have a severe fear of heights. Yeah, DW, I don't think you'd be climbing up a crane then, like this guy.
In a storm that scares me. What really unsettles me was the scale of New York City around him. I couldn't see the end, even at the height he was at. The fact that a city could get that big terrified me. Thinking about how large New York really is frightens me in a weird kind of way that's hard to explain, like a cyberpunk dystopia of a city you can't escape from. It's the same thing with cities like Tokyo. Seeing megacities like
Yeah,
it depicted from
Tokyo's freaking
staggering
huge.
heights, and yet, the end is nowhere in sight. It feels like I can walk along these streets forever and never reach an end. It's similar in some ways to Satomu Nihei.
DKRACK, would you do this for $1 million? That's tempting, but I don't think $1 million would do me any good if I was dead. I don't think I would try to climb up a crane with no safety gear or nothing. If I had a parachute, maybe.
Nihei's manga Blam. Blam is set in an impossible, algorithmically decided city in the far future.
Nice,
The
Batgirl.
machines that built this large megastructure could only be controlled by an advanced form of internet only accessible to people with the correct genes. After a virus wiped out these genes, without human instructions, the machine continued building the city indefinitely. We follow the story of a synthetic human named Killy and
Hey, Brandon, thanks for the donation, bro.
his search for the net terminal gene. Being that Nihei studied architecture, it isn't surprising that a lot of the main story of Blam takes a back seat to the vast illustrations of the megastructure. I would say
Thanks,
the
Trout
protagonist
W.
of Blam is Killy, but I would also equally say the protagonist is the city itself. A lot of the pages are dedicated to Killy wandering down the megacity's hallways, climbing its towers, wandering through a structure that never ends.
Trout W, I'll check after this video is done, okay, bro? You sent a super chat, but it didn't go through. I'll check, okay, bro? After this video is done.
The horror of Blame is the concept of a place so big you can't escape it. Humanity being forgotten and left to survive on the few resources they have.
What?
People being spread so far from each other in this megastructure that you can wander your whole
Is
life
this like
without
a
seeing another person.
Comic book
It's
or
never
something?
explicitly said how long Killy spends trying to find the
Wow.
net terminal gene. My guess is that he walks through the city for
I'm not afraid of big objects, but these do make me feel uneasy. Chip, I agree with you. I don't think I have megalophobia, like a fear of huge things, you know, big structures, buildings, whatever, but this does make me feel a little uneasy. Like, I don't think I have a fear of heights or megalophobia, but like, it does make me feel a little uneasy. I agree with you.
thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of years, and yet no progress is made. The megastructure is so massive that it really doesn't matter how long you walk through it. At one point, a room is revealed to be about the diameter of Jupiter. In the prequel, it's revealed the builders stretched all the way to the moon and kept
What?
going. While Killy does come across monsters and threats to his
Hey,
life
thanks,
during the
Trout
manga,
W.
it all takes a back seat to the real horror of Blam, the scale of the city. To call it huge would be an understatement. At one point, Killy enters an elevator with an AI. Killy's destination is 780 kilometers. The AI
There's a new computer game in this video I really want to play. All right, cool, bro.
tells Killy that it will take 33 days of waiting in the elevator to reach where he needs to go. This, however, is only
33
but a tiny fraction
days.
of Killy's journey.
God damn.
Killy is doomed to walk this gargantuan city, a city too big to even put into words.
I know, Game Boy.
Forever. You probably know that outer space is unimaginably large. It could even be infinite. The mind-boggling distance between stars and other celestial bodies.
Yeah, space is low-key creepy, guys. I've watched a few movies where like the astronauts get like lost in space and like it's like sci-fi, you know, it's not like real, but the thought of being in space where it's just like endless blackness and just like the universe and space, I don't think the human mind can comprehend like how vast and how large space actually is. Like, it's crazy.
These are beyond human
Like, if you see like a space image of Earth compared to like space, Earth is just like a tiny little dot surrounded by just blackness. The Earth we all live on right now is very, very like, it's like a grain of sand in the universe. Where like Earth is very tiny.
comprehension. Trying to comprehend the true scale of a light year is a challenge. As inhabitants of Earth, we experience light almost instantaneously, yet the speed of light is limited to 299,792,458 meters per second.
Wow.
Considering that light takes just a second to travel to the moon, you might assume that covering a distance of a light year, light traveling for a whole year, would be a very large distance.
I'll have to check it out,
However,
Underground.
in the grand scheme of the universe, this seemingly vast distance is reduced to nothing more than a cosmic joke. To put things into perspective, our closest star, Proxima Centauri, is located 4.25 light years away from us. Yet it doesn't matter. The universe is larger than even our attempts to measure it. I think this is why many people, including...
Like I said, humans have probably explored like 1% of the universe.
myself, experience a deep fear of space. Astrophobia is the fear of outer space and the celestial bodies that inhabit it.
Really,
like
John?
megalophobia, I understand people who have astrophobia. The immense expanse of empty darkness in space is already unnerving, but what truly terrifies me is the sheer scale of the universe and the large bodies that call it home. Take, for example, Tunt 618, the largest black hole ever discovered. To put it into perspective, 11 solar systems can fit inside Tunt 618, side by side. Even looking at pictures of planets like Jupiter or Saturn can unsettle me. The sheer magnitude of these celestial bodies surpasses any standard for size set here on Earth. And yet, there they are, suspended in the vastness of space, surrounded by an eerie emptiness. The only thing making these planets eerie is the scale. These planets are something so immense we can't fully grasp it, and because of that, it gives me an immense feeling of fear. And to think that Jupiter and Saturn are not even close to the largest of celestial bodies.
Damn, that's
the fact that our
huge.
entire solar system is a little speck inside of the ocean of darkness that is Tunt 618, which
Probably
itself
underground.
is surrounded by an ocean of darkness in the form of the universe. And you can see why some people fear the huge. While the infinite emptiness of space may be scary, I'd almost say
Like
it's
some
rivaled
Star
by the
Wars
fear
shit.
of things on Earth. While fearing space is somewhat irrational since most of us aren't getting on a spacecraft on a daily basis, fearing the ocean, another dark abyss, is
Oh gosh, now we're gonna talk about the ocean. Yeah. Ugh. Space is scary, but parts of the ocean are like 7-8 miles deep. Oh yeah, the ocean's pretty scary too.
perfectly rational. Thalassophobia is the fear of deep waters. Just like astrophobia, this fear makes a lot of sense.
I think it's just like the thought of the unknown. Like if you're in really deep water, like what's below you? Is something going to reach up and grab your foot and like pull you down? Sharks and whatever else is in the frickin' ocean.
The fear of drowning in these deep waters is perfectly reasonable. It's similar in some ways to astrophobia. Staring down into deep water is a lot like staring into deep space.
Like what's down
Humans
there?
have used this fear of water to scare each other for centuries, mostly in the form of large creatures, like the Greek myth Scylla or the Bible's Leviathan. But no large underwater monster has been talked about more than the Kraken. In his book, The Natural History of Norway, Eric Pontoppidan writes about the Kraken on page 200. He describes it as the
What the hell's the Kraken? I've heard of that before. The Kraken,
most surprising member of the animal kingdom. He writes that no human has ever seen the full scale of the Kraken, but its back alone is 1.5 miles
like a giant squid.
The Kraken and these many other sea myths are described as gigantic, abominations of the sea. Of course, the stories of the Kraken's size vary. Some are only big enough to fully destroy one ship, with tentacles only a couple feet long, which is still cool. It's neat, but not really what I mean when I talk about the Kraken.
Like a giant squid.
I found that the stories of the Kraken I loved most were the ones that made the Kraken larger than life. I didn't just want a Kraken as big as a ship, I wanted one that was larger than I could imagine. Gods that inhabited the sea, diving down to distances we could never follow. I think the reason the story of the Kraken captivates so many people is because it's impossible to disprove. I mean, sure, we don't have any photographic evidence of a creature multiple miles long.
I think the closest thing we have to evidence of this is like a giant squid, but it's not as like as huge as these pictures here, like this creature. Like the giant squid is pretty damn big, but it's not this big.
But with all these stories and the deep sea being so vast, it isn't a stretch to say that it could exist. Somewhere. And if the Kraken is hiding in our depths, what about other things? What about the Loch Ness Monster? Or the Megalodon? Creatures so elusive that we've never even spotted them. I mean, we discover new things in the deep sea all the time. The shark, a Prestoris overgorgatus, great name by the way, was discovered only in 2011. So have giant sea creatures really been hiding from us this whole time? Well, probably not. But it's a neat thing to think about. My fascination with large things reminds me of the works of, and I'm gonna butcher this name, Zdzisław Beksinski, a Polish painter that was famous for making art like this. Paintings of large human-looking things or structures, huge works of what I can only describe as nightmare art. The art Beksinski makes is obviously scary, but also large.
What the heck? You wonder what dark things were going on in this artist's head if he made paintings like this? That's a little disturbing.
Very large. I find that paintings where he uses scale to add fear, or to make the viewer of the painting feel small, scarier than his more horror-focused nightmare ones. Another artist that comes to mind is the English painter John Martin. John Martin was an artist who used an apocalyptic sense of scale in his work. His paintings depict things that range from grand biblical events to striking moments in history. His work has a feeling of fear to it from the scale alone. His painting, Satan
Guys, imagine being an artist where you could like draw or paint stuff like this detailed. Some of these artists throughout history have such incredible talent. How do they paint like so realistic?
Residing at the Infernal Council is one that stands out in particular. It depicts Satan sitting on a large throne in a room filled with people that stretches out infinitely.
Atlantis, maybe.
Or his painting Pandemonium, which depicts the capital of hell as an immensely large structure. The scale of Martin's paintings is meant to intimidate, but is also meant to be feared. This can also be applied to architecture and design.
That's weird
Hugh Ferris
looking.
was an architectural renderer and theorist in the early 1920s. He made renditions that described an inhuman world, not in the sense of a hostile robot takeover or an
Oh god, it was the Terminator!
Not in the sense of a hostile robot takeover or an Earth plagued by nuclear waste, but instead a world that is built
underground?
and designed with nothing but practicality in mind. Skyscrapers larger than what we would usually build, towering over cities and streets.
That's
with
actually
terrifying power.
That's kind of
Highways
cool.
built right over each other without regard to the driver. Not a single piece of nature can ever be found in Ferris's work. There is a sense of awe in his works, but one that can also be terrifying. The way he uses lighting in particular scares me. Most buildings are lit by a light under the building itself, illuminating it from the bottom up, much like a monster revealing its face with a flashlight.
Jump scare!
Ferris's works, especially to someone with megalophobia, are terrifying. These sweeping large buildings inhabited by these small people in vehicles. It's no wonder why the subject of Ferris's work and others like him are brought up on the megalophobia
I wonder how long it took these artists to like finish a painting or a drawing like this. This looks like it was done in pencil. Wonder how long it would take them to finish art like this.
It frequently. The cities he designs feel unlivable by their sheer size alone. When does a skyscraper get too big? Well, I think Hugh Ferris's metropolises are a good indicator. Uncanny city design, however, can go beyond real life.
Oh no.
Babdi is a game that is as straightforward as can be. You need a train ticket. Tickets are sold out, so you get one from your neighbor. Get on the train and leave. However, this main storyline isn't really the point of
Is this the game you want to play underground? What's it called? Babby? Like I said, guys, when I save up and I'm able to get build a PC, I'm going to be able to play a lot of these like computer games that I can't play on my Xbox, There's going to be a lot of games I can play here on my channel. What was it called? Babby?
Babdi. No.
The
point of Babdi is to explore the city that it is set in. Also named Babdi. You explore these large buildings, rooftops, abandoned train tracks, and all of it in a city that feels cold. A city that feels completely
This looks a little creepy.
Concrete buildings litter the sky and block out the sun. The same concrete buildings that you can explore. It seems that no matter what direction you walk in, you'll always end up doing the same thing. Going on an adventure. You could jump over a fence into an alleyway and follow abandoned train tracks to a reservoir that is
This
no
looks
longer
like a
in
cool
use,
game.
and on the way back, find a place you can crawl into that leads down a whole nother rabbit hole. Not to mention the NPCs you find along the way. Most of these guys feel like actual people and not like realistic faces with lines of codes written inside of them. I'm looking at you, AAA games industry. Despite the characters having these grotesque looking faces or heads that seem to impossibly snap to where you are, they still feel human. Sometimes it's kind of sad.
It's a little
like this old lady
disturbing.
saying she'll make it back home, one step at a time. But it can also be really goofy, like this guy implying that he banged your mom, or this guy that literally tells you to kill yourself.
What?
I'm serious. Despite the fact that some
Try
characters
jumping,
are fun,
what the
most
heck?
are just sad, talking about wanting to leave and how bored they are. They give the city an even more somber atmosphere to it than it already has, and the placement of these people makes it even better. If you go down into a sewer, you might find some people dancing next to a trash can fire.
What the
and when you
hell?
talk to them, they just start speaking Spanish. And they'll keep dancing even if you turn off the music. It's funny, but also a little weird. Despite some funny
Hey,
or
thanks,
even happy
Powerpuff.
themes, Babdi still has an overwhelming sense of despair surrounding it. The people who want so badly to
This game looks like it'd be fun to play, but it looks a little depressing. Like all these people are just trapped in this giant concrete city and nobody can leave. They're just all trapped here.
leave, the environment of concrete buildings or the dark themes hidden throughout the game, like the secret collectible items that you can sometimes find. They don't do anything to the actual game, they're just there to be found. But the secret items are a little dark. Things like alcohol,
Bam.
cigarettes, or guns. Babdi feels like a horror game, but it isn't. I think the main reason it feels that way is, yes, the
It's
people in the dark
it's
themes it subtly
uncanny
explores,
valley.
but also the scale of the world itself. Babdi City feels big in a way that isn't typical of most massive cities in games. It's hardly the size of GTA or Fallout 4, but something Babdi does that these other games don't is not faking the space. What I mean by this is that Babdi doesn't fake anything. If I wanted to go in and explore one of these many dilapidated buildings, then I can. The game never stops you from exploring.
This game
Even the massive reservoir
looks massive. Why does the city look so big?
I mentioned earlier. Sure, it doesn't have any secrets, but there isn't anything stopping you from wandering through it. This world doesn't feel designed for the player. It feels like a real city. It feels like this place existed far before
Patrick.
the player arrived to see it. Babdi also takes advantage of the scale of the stuff surrounding the city. There are many balconies where you can get a good view of the massive reservoir that you can also explore. You feel so small walking through this hollow, cold city. There's so much to do and so much to find that Babdi still feels bigger than most actual open world games. Even though Babdi's map isn't as big as other games, it still feels massive. Here's a question. Without any tools, how long would it take to really know the ins and outs of Babdi?
It's kind of like the Sims game. They act weird. Right, Chelsea?
My guess? Probably days. It's because of this fact that Babdi City really did give me a sense of megalophobia, something no video game city has ever done before. I highly recommend you play Babdi. It's completely free and on Steam and itch.io. And as always,
Okay.
I'll leave a link in the description.
I'll have to maybe play this. Looks kind of...
Megalophobia is the fear of big things, sure. But I think it's also the fear of scale. Things like cities and galaxies. Megalophobia is one of those fears that might seem weird at first, but makes perfect sense if you analyze it. We all naturally share at least a little bit of fear for big things, whether it be in the artificial or the natural. Unlike a fear of
Holy
spiders
shit,
or a
was that an actual... Was that an actual statue?
bit of fear for big things, whether it be in the artificial
That's an actual statue right there? There's like... The freaking toes on the statue are bigger than people. Oh my god.
or the natural. Unlike a fear of spiders or a fear of heights, the fear of big things is something that is so odd at first, yet so obvious if you choose to think about it. From works of art, to outer space, to video games, and to the real skyscrapers in our world, we have always found discomfort and maybe even a little bit of fear in the huge.
All right, guys. Well, that's the end of this video. This was Megalophobia, the fear of big or huge things. Gonna leave a like on it. By the channel Crescendex. They have over 21,000 subscribers. Crescendex. I've never heard of this channel before. Make sure and go check them out, guys. That was this stuff didn't really scare me. It just kind of made me feel a little uneasy, you know?